Hi, guys, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we complain bitterly about all the tiny things in our otherwise good lives. We used to pretend this was a news and general interest show. It's not. It's just a dead horse that we can keep on flogging until all our problems disappear. And I'm joined in that task by Matt. Two Rumpets. Do you like that we've stopped pretending to be like a news topical discussion show?
Well, I don't know. It had a certain comedy value for a while, I suppose. But yeah, frankly, my personal opinion, though, is as long as we have computers, our problems will never completely disappear.
Why? Because they will always completely frustrate and infuriate us.
They will always throw up new and exciting challenges when least expected. That's my general opinion.
Well, it's funny with Zoom because we've been using Zoom for the last couple of years, so we've got used to it being like a certain way. We've got a premium package with it. It's because we have to have long calls with multiple people, but it got rid of a lot of the problems we had with Skype, which was that it added all sorts of artifacts and noise gates and stuff. And then everyone discovered Zoom during lockdown, and then Zoom just started changing everything to accommodate, not just podcasters and business meetings. They then had to, accommodate Mr. Dobbins at number 42, who just wants one big red button in the middle. So Zoom's completely changed, and they keep updating everything every 5 minutes, which isn't frustrating at all.
No, not at all. When you show up expecting A and you've been handed Z instead, sure, anybody could just roll with that last second.
Yeah. All right, cool. Matt, I am not a person who every single day for no reason gets dolled up and looks in the mirror and like slick gel in my hair, a suit and tie, even if I'm working at home, and says, "You go get 'em, Tiger." That's not me. Is that you?
No. But are you sure that's not you? I don't know. I'm looking at you now, and I'm thinking that you spent some effort there.
Now, I had a shower because I went for a run, and I go for a run on a Thursday so that I can come on here and go, "Oh, guys, I'm so tired from my run. My legs hurt so much. I did so many miles."
Because it didn't happen if you didn't talk about it.
Exactly. But before that, I was a hot mess. Basically, I went to get up and have a shower and everything and do the school run. And my wife said, "No, it's all right. I'll do the school run." So I was like, "Oh, well, that's all right." In that case, cargo shorts straight to work without too much effort. So I'm looking scruffy, hair's all scruffy, cargo shorts, bare feet. Wife comes back from the school run, knocks on the door of the shed with a cup of coffee, brings me a cup of coffee. And I look at her and I'm sure she was dressed when she went to school. And she just went, "Well, I'm getting back in pajamas. Not having it today." So she goes back to work in her pajamas and like a comfy shawl thing around her shoulders. But what we forgot was that we had a friend of ours picking up our car for our MOT. Now, we've not seen him for a little while. And so we've not seen him in months since lockdown. He knocks on the door. He's like, "Oh, hi, guys." And if he wanted a picture of how's life going for you two, he got it. Because we were just stood there like just in our, we looked like it was Sunday morning, not 11 a.m. on a weekday with just like hair sticking up everywhere, pajamas, cargo shorts. And we went, maybe we're going to have to start, making a bit more effort.
Yeah, well, I think as it went, the hard clothes.
Hard clothes.
Getting your hard clothes on. Yeah, that's the, if you're going to be stuck at home, why wear hard clothes? I'm fully down with this philosophy.
And if it wasn't for the show, I might not have even put a shirt on. But anyway, that led me to think about the variety of dressing, the variety of dress codes you see on a school run, all the way from like people in their business suits, people in their uniforms ready to go, all the way down to people like me who have got like a cap on over their head, trying not to show the sleep that's still in their eyes, and a hoodie just to cover up their general kind of matted and disorganized, crumpled, grab a shirt from the bottom of the pile. That one's sort of okay. So there's a big mix, and someone who I consider an expert on the school run is our guest today. We are joined by Michelle Davey, a.k.a. the Cockney in the Countryside. Good afternoon, Michelle.
Hello. This is exciting.
Yeah, isn't it? Do you know how much trouble your moniker of Cockney in the Countryside caused me when we first started talking on radio?
Why's that?
By the way, I can just tell you're nice and present on the mic. That means, Matt, you need to turn yourself up at your end. Because it's Cockney in the countryside, and I had to say it very, very slowly, and it felt like a personal attack in the end.
Yeah, I remember a few close calls, yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely like I had to breathe, pause, and then make sure I completed the word. But Cockney in the Countryside is your blog. Where you
Yes.
blogged about life as a Londoner. Oh, look, I'm coming into the forest. Oh, look, those lampposts have got green things hanging off them. No, my dear, those are trees.
Yep, I'm adjusting. It's about, I don't know, 4.5 years now. I've been in the countryside, yeah. But it's been a big adjustment. And even now I'm like, whoa, a hedgehog.
Are you still? You're not still that country person. You're like, ow, Kaz! Look, kids, there's Kaz.
There's a hedgehog family in our garden. And at first I thought, like, oh, that's so cute. It's a hedgehog. I've never seen one that ain't squashed. And then it's like, yeah, it's become like, I hate the hedgehog. I absolutely hate it. It rips my bins open every single night. And my dog hates it. My dog picked it up in its mouth as well.
Really, with the
So
spikes and all.
Yeah, it was a bad move by the dog. He's not the full shilling.
Oh, a tasty treat. Ah, hedgehogs. Yeah, in the UK, do you know what we're talking about, Matt, when we say hedgehog? I bet you've... No, you've got a different name for it.
Animal.
Yeah, you'll call it like a spike rat or something. Americans are very literal, aren't they? Look, spike rat.
That'd be a good name for it.
I'm just, spike rat works for me. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I'm just surprised that you have them over there. I would have thought they were all like badgers or
Yeah, we have badgers.
groundhogs or something.
That's on my list, a badger. Like I've got this list of like creatures from the wild. Like basically, remember Animals of Farthing Wood Spanners? Did you used to watch that?
No, I'm
And
too young.
it's like this, yeah, you're a bit older than me. It's like this sort
Dunno.
of countryside program. And yeah, I'm just sort of like ticking off the animals that I've seen in real life.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Badger's one of the last ones.
Is it? Okay. Well, badgers are aggressive and mean, as far as I know. But hedgehogs, spike rats, have a reputation for being like really friendly little pets, and everyone's obsessed with looking after them in the UK and making sure that you don't burn a bonfire with spike rats in them. But yeah, so like you still have that kind of that city mentality. Are the locals still alarmed by your presence? Because you speak like my impression of my wife. Like she doesn't really speak like that, but you know, you can come across as just like, all right, and you go, wow, Michelle has definitely entered the room. Like you enter a room on purpose, don't you?
Yeah, I think through lockdown, I've reconnected with loads of my old schoolmates. And we've been like sending voice notes back and forth. And yeah, a couple of people at the school gate did say, wow, you sound really London again.
Oh, right. Oh, but could it be because you've been isolated, because you've been indoors and
Yes,
you're not
it
like,
is,
you're
yeah.
not picking it up off the locals, so you've reverted back to cockneyness. But my
Do you know
wife,
what
go
one
on.
thing, sorry. One thing that always I find quite confusing, I've started doing again since September, is like, I'll always go, oh, all right. And that's just a greeting. That's just, hello.
Oh, all right.
But like, yeah, but then people answer me and say, yes, I'm fine, thanks. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's a bit much.
"Oh,
It's a bit much that. I would find that
just
greeting.
say all right back.
All right. I find that when my wife goes to South Woodham Ferris, right, she comes back like, constantly, like full on, like that weird kind of, not Cockney, but that kind of London overspill accent. And it takes about a spill. See, I just did it again there. Overspill accent. It takes about a week to dissipate.
You're from Essex though, ain't you, Spanish?
But I'm from the farmery bit. I'm in North Essex, Colchester. So it's it's basically Suffolk. So, yeah. Yes. The thing is, the Essex region, Matt, has got a reputation for being a bit fast and loose, a bit like easy loving, cool rider, you know, a bit of a party county. So I try and disassociate myself from then. What's the equivalent in New York? Is that Brooklyn?
Williamsburg, maybe.
Oh,
I don't
Jersey.
know. Like a party place? No, actually, you know where? Weirdly, a big chunk of the Upper East Side is where all the how do I put this? The private school kids and their brethren go to party hard. It's where the St. Paddy's Day parade used to always end, and it was a nightmare if you lived in that neighborhood on that particular day. Lots of drunken people from New Jersey throwing green beer up in the street.
Right. Well, this is a not posh version of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except to say, yeah.
Except with mix in a bit of misery and despair, and you're there. But you had that program Jersey Shore, didn't you? Which took off. That was and the Americans started all that, and then we had Towie. The Only Way is Essex, which was the equivalent, and that is like exactly where my wife is from. That sort of area.
Okay, so basically Jersey Shore, but in the UK. Got it.
Yeah, but disgusting. Yeah. So we were talking about school runs. I remember you did a great blog post, Michelle, on the schoolyard mafia. Or what did you call it?
The Schoolgate Mafia. Yeah, I think that was the blog post that actually sort of catapulted my blog out there a bit, if that's the right terminology. Yeah, that seemed to be when I got a hell of a lot of views.
All right, well, give me the crib notes on the Schoolgate Mafia, because I love that.
Wow,
I
going back
love
a bit
that
now.
article. Yeah.
So we had like I can't remember the exact names I called them, but one of them was like the fitness freak mum.
With the jeggings.
Like, yeah, you always get a mum that turns up and they're like, oh, I'm just going to the gym, or I've just been for a run, and they just always look like completely at ease and like really serene, even though that they've apparently been sweating it out for God knows how long before the Schoolgate run.
So I think any dad or any parent that combines the school run with fitness needs to be immediately like, I don't know, I can't think of a punishment, but it's the biggest cry for help in existence, isn't it? If you just, I'm such a busy go-getter that I'm mixing in my fitness with the school run. I can't stand that.
Yeah, and also there's the eco warrior mums that are sort of like their children are going to cycle to school every day, which is an amazing idea. I wish I was this person, but yeah, I'm not. Like my children, all three of them cycling to school just fills me with pure dread.
Yeah, it does. I think Matt, when you go running, right? I actively avoid the population. Like today, I identified when I go cross country. At the time I went today, this is when everyone was being kicked out of a local office, and they all have their like lunch breaks and everything. And it looks like you've picked that moment because you think you look amazing running, and you're like, "Hey, look at me, everyone." But I always think if I'm in a town centre and you see someone like actively running through a town centre, there's no other reason to do that except if you're just desperately lonely and you want everyone to look at you running.
Yeah, or that is the only way you can get to wherever it is you want to go.
No!
Which is also a possibility.
No, I don't buy that as an excuse. You're telling me that there are places that exist where you can't possibly avoid the town centre. No, I'm not having it. But there's a lot of judgment, isn't there, Michelle? A lot of judgment at the school gate, I find. And if you're not in the right gang, like you can just be left. I used to find that. I just get left kind
today,
of.
Yeah.
Not today. You can get
no
like.
Today is a big day in my world.
Oh, okay. Tell me about why. Why is today a big one?
It was book day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Tell me about World Book Day.
So it's book dress up day today. I don't know if it's actually like our national book day or whatever it is, like where everyone does it, because I haven't seen everyone on my Instagram like plastering their photos of like book day. But yeah, for our school it's book day. But yeah, I just feel like this is a huge, even when I was a teacher, this is a huge day and a horrendous day. Like I don't know why we do it. Like, I really don't, because all the kids just dress up as superheroes and then bring some really mediocre book and like, hey, look, this is the film and this is the book they made about the film. And
they're like, or Harry Potter, and you can ask them, which was your favourite Harry Potter book? And they're like, the first movie.
Yeah. And I always, when I was a teacher, I was really like, oh, that's not even a book before I had children. And then today,
what have they gone as? So my daughter
went, bear in mind, I only thought about it last night. So my daughter went as the witch from Room on the Broom. So I bought her a broom. And then my son went as a dinosaur, like a scary goblin-y dinosaur thing from a random book I found. And then my daughter and my son were like dressed up, and then my son was just like, hey, we could use these for Halloween too. I was like, yes, you could.
Great idea, kid. I love that efficiency drive. So firstly, Room with a Broom. That's quite good. You're just a witch with a broom. That's relatively easy. I hate that book.
Yeah, I know. It's not a very good book. But I had all these like amazing ideas, and I was like to her, right, draw the pictures of the animals that sit on the broom, and then we can put them on card and cut them out and stick them to the broom. Never happened. She drew the pictures and I sent them in. I was like, we can't find the scissors. Like, so yeah, if she can cut them out at school, that's great.
Oh man. We do go a bit all in for World Book Day, to be fair. And my daughter, I'm trying to remember the books because there's an old granny, there's Gangster Granny, which I think is a David Walliams one. And then there's another granny as well. Oh, come on, chat room. You got to help me out here. There's two like famous kid grannies at the moment, and my daughter dresses up as the other one, and gets confused with the other one. She gets really annoyed all day. Tobias says, kids cycling to school is the best, but it requires almost all the kids to cycle. Otherwise, all the parents in cars are a health hazard. Yep. We've started just like pooling the kids cycling. So if we cycle with the kids, we'll message so that like just one adult is with the 3 kids. And when you're with a herd of kids on their bikes and you approach a junction, like your heart's in your mouth, because our oldest is 10, and I would say, I don't know, 999 times out of 1,000, he'll just stop at the junction and be sensible. There'll be one time when he'll not even acknowledge that there's a road there and just fire across it. So you do spend that whole state in like deep panic of the whole time round. So I completely don't judge you, Michelle. Matt.
Oh, right.
Well, I was actually, speaking of runs, I was on my run yesterday, and this made me think of your son, actually. Even in the park, because we have lots of cyclists, and there are some vehicles, there are actually stoplights in the park with pedestrian crossing, so people can get across from the outer to the inner across. Essentially, there's like a ring road that goes around the park. And I was running up to a light. It was a green light for the people going around the ring road. And this kid on a bike rides into a lane of traffic, realizes, like, because some pedestrian adults had crossed when there was a gap, but he was late or he couldn't get his bike started. So he manages to ride almost into a lane and block it entirely as cyclists who were clearly racing in their head are firing towards him.
Yeah.
And then he stops when he realizes his mistake, and he stops like right in the way of everybody. And it was all brakes and around and everyone going sideways and backwards and forwards. And I looked at him and I thought, yep. And
Tree
there
face.
you go.
But it's
all the way.
It's the panic stop, isn't it? The, oh my God, everything's going wrong. I will stop in the worst possible position and create a logjam. And all that kind of happens as well. And when you see a dangerous situation as a parent on the bike, we have a rule. If you hear me say stop, you stop. Brakes go on, you stop. But kids never listen the first time. So you go, stop! Nothing happens. Oh my God, stop! By which time they're like in the middle of the danger, and then they hear stop and it registers and they go, okay, fully put on the brakes. No, you're in the middle of the motorway. No!
Yeah, well, the basic problem with that plan is that as they get older, they simply filter more and more of your voice out of their head. So that, like, even at his age, like 95% of your words are just like filtered.
Yeah, it's like a noise gate in audio, isn't it? So because of the background noise of stop, pick up your socks. Why do you have to do that? It's time. Shoes, put on your shoes. Please, just put on your shoes. That becomes just background noise to them, and they raise their internal noise gate to the level where then you have, that's it, Michelle, though, isn't it? Then you have to keep raising. It's like an arms race. You have to get louder and angrier, and by the time they're 10, you're just a horrible person.
Yeah, I think this is why they listen to my husband more, because he's got like really broad North of Ireland accent, and it's like when he speaks, then it's all of a sudden, they seem to look at him and go, "Oh, right, yeah, you're telling us what to do."
Has he got, when he goes into angry mode, has he got quite a frightening Northern Irish accent? And would you care to do a somewhat culturally insensitive impression of him? I
Put
wouldn't.
your shoes on now.
Oh, yeah,
It's like that.
Now. Okay, good. I won't do it. I won't do one. Michelle, you've had quite an interesting journey. I'm not just inviting you on just because we like you and just because you've got pink hair. We are wanting to talk about your podcast that you've been doing since lockdown, and it's not faded. I gave that idea about 3 episodes. I thought you were going to pod fade immediately, but you've been doing it. And so now that means there's at least 3 podcasts in the world. Missed Apex podcast, this one, and your one, which is called something kids something.
It's called Let's Talk Autism and AEN.
Okay. So let's talk terminology. This is a very interesting subject, one close to my heart as well. We get used to talking about, when my brother was younger, my younger brother, he is mentally handicapped. They used to say mentally retarded, severe learning disabilities, also autistic, probably the least of his problems. But it was always just called special needs. Now, with some much milder things that me and Treeface address, it's known as SEN, special educational needs. and we have interactions with the SENCO, the Special Educational Needs Coordinator. However, I'm
Yeah.
now told that that term isn't really much beloved.
Yeah, well, it's a running joke that I always say. When I was a school teacher, so I was a school teacher. When I was a school teacher, it was SEN. So even at university, we would do specialism in special educational needs. I did a primary education degree.
Yeah.
So when we started the podcast, then yeah, we sort of used the word SEN, and we built quite a community, and we got quite a few messages saying, I don't actually like the term SEN. We use AEN, additional educational needs. Quite a few people said that, so we kind of put it as a poll on our Instagram, and quite a lot of people said that we prefer AEN. So that's what we
Yeah.
choose to use, to be honest.
I think the term special educational needs was well-meaning to start with, because people didn't want to say, oh, handicapped or disabled, maybe didn't want to use those sort of limiting words. So by saying special, they were just like saying, oh, it's extra educational needs. But then over the decades, since like special needs was not, no one turned an eyelid at special needs. In fact, that was the politically correct term, back in the 80s and 90s. But that has taken on now, and almost a stigma, isn't it? It's become the joke. If you want to take the mickey out of someone, you go, oh, you're special, or special needs. So you can understand why people would want to move away from that kind of terminology.
I think, yeah, it does have a negative connotation. I think sort of our age group as well, that was when it started to come into a bit. People go, oh, yeah, he's special. Oh, is that your special friend? Do you know what I mean? It came a bit like that, didn't it? So I think that's, why.
Does that translate to the Yanks, Matt? Do you have similar terminology?
Yeah, we do. I mean, like you. When I was in school, the term for anyone who didn't fall into like that middle bit of a bell curve distribution in academic subjects was or in mental acuity, I guess you might say, was retarded.
Yeah.
And then it was special education. And now, I don't know, I'm in New York, so it's all numbers. It's 504s and IEPs. And it's been, at least in New York, because you can get additional resources pointed at your kid if they qualify, even vaguely and remotely. There are actually some schools where almost every kid has an IEP, which is just like a specialized education plan that the school has to stick to.
Yeah.
So like I'm not even really in touch with the correct with the current technology. Actually, you know what I would go with? Neurodivergent probably is what we would use to describe anyone who doesn't do well in a traditional school setting and needs some kind of either additional time on tests or additional help and so on and so forth.
So I don't think this is trivial, the terminology, by the way. In case it gets dismissed.
No, I agree.
It don't matter. I think Mark says it reasonably well here. A lot of things which are now insulting started off as a well-meaning way to describe someone or something. We have to keep changing the words because kids are not
awful.
Very nice, awful people. And it's true. So I think that's just a reality, because you're right.
Yeah.
Kids are terrible. Some grown-ups are terrible. So as people decide to start using things as an insult and give those insults power, I think it's fine. We'll move away, we shift away, whatever makes people feel comfortable. Political correctness is simply manners, and I think it is manners to move away from hurtful terms. Why I think that terminology and perception can be important, I saw my parents go through what I think you will probably be going through at the moment, which is people just not understanding the way the child might respond in public. So my brother would get very, very frustrated. He would suddenly get very loud. He would start making a big fuss and was not able to learn any of the social constraints that, I'm now putting on my kids and be like, that behavior is not acceptable. They tend to sort of, I say they, this is so really broad. I'll speak in individual terms. So my brother would get very frustrated and start acting out. And people would have a go at my mum in the street, control your child, do this, that, the other. And there was nothing, no ill intention coming out of him. Do you have any of those issues with your autistic child? Oh, no, hang on, sorry.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Terminology important again. Do you have any of those issues with your child that has autism?
Yes. Yeah. So that's one of the main things that we speak about a lot is, people's perceptions of autism. My son, and it changes so much. When we got our diagnosis, see, I would have put my son as Asperger's, but they don't use the word
No,
Asperger's anymore.
they
So
don't.
when I was teaching, it was only 3 years since I'd stopped teaching at this point, and my son's now getting diagnosed, and they were kind of like, "Oh, he's autistic," and I was like, "But he's high functioning." "Oh, we don't use that terminology anymore, but he can speak, and he's got to be able to speak, isn't he? Because he could speak."
Yeah.
"Yes, but we don't use that." And I said, I was just distraught in the end. I was like, "Please, just tell me, if this was 3 years ago, is my son Asperger's? Would you call him Asperger's?" And they just said, yes. So that I could understand that a bit more then.
Okay, so for people not familiar, I think Asperger's is that just the term for high functioning people with autism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my son has speech, but socially he can't. I mean, every single child with with ASD is different completely. And Christelle, who I do the podcast
Your
with, that's my
co-host.
best friend since I was about 11.
Yeah.
She got in touch with me through lockdown. We've sort of always been in and out of each other's lives again, but through lockdown, she just said, "Mish, your son's autistic. We've just got a diagnosis during lockdown, and they've said he's autistic and he's free, but he's non-verbal. So there's no speech.
Yeah.
So yeah, that doesn't mean that he can't communicate, but he just hasn't got the words to communicate. And they're both we've got very different lives."
Yeah.
And that's what I think's made this journey so interesting between us, because our lives are so similar in one way, yet so different. And we're really learning from each other. And we have a different guest every week. And we are covering sort of additional education needs. So we've had people come on with PDA, which is pathological defiance or devoid. It's just basically when it was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, the child would just completely go against every single thing the parent said. But you might think, well, my child does that. But
Well, that goes back
extreme.
to that just goes back to, oh, there's not really a problem. They're just naughty. It's a discipline. It's a discipline issue. Why don't you just discipline them better, Michelle?
Yeah, and that's what I had when my son was 3. We got him diagnosed, and I had so many people say to me, "Oh, it's just you. You've got your teacher's hat on. He's just a boy. Oh, he's just a toddler. He's just coming out of himself, you know." But I knew in my heart that there was something more than that. And when they gave me that diagnosis, I did just start crying. It felt like relief, but it's also sadness as well. Like, there was a sadness, and I think that was what infuriated me at first, is because they sort of said, "Go to these groups and meet other parents with children the same as you." And I just had my youngest, the boss baby, and he was a newborn, and now I
Boss
took him
baby.
along to this group.
Yeah.
And the parents were like, "Yes, autism is our superpower, and we're so lucky." And at that point, like, I'll be
Ooh.
brutally honest, all I felt was like, wow, like, I just couldn't. Nothing's real here, is it? Is this real? Am I a bad parent for not feeling this at that point? And
Okay.
it's taken a while.
Have you softened on that? Because
Oh yeah.
I tell you what, I have never. I think Matt's trying to get in as well. But Matt, I never growing up saw any positives to being in a family with a mentally handicapped autistic child. And there was none of these groups. There was none of that positivity bubbling up for that. So in a way, it's nice. I'm hearing it. If it's nice, if people are getting positivity, it's just not something that I'm familiar with.
I may struggle a bit to put all of these thoughts into
Sure, of course.
the correct order with words. But in essence, I am first reminded of performance psychology in baseball, where there was a player who was like a Michael Jordan, someone who gloried in
Yeah. It's always
the pressure.
baseball.
Like when everything was on the line, I want to be the person in charge. And they interviewed him and said, "What is it? How did you get to this place?" He's like, "Oh, I was always terrified, but I kept on telling myself that's what I wanted till I eventually
Okay, yeah.
believed it." So I think in part, what we're talking about is a mental attitude, and a positive mental attitude. And I think that's incredibly important. I don't mean to say like you're just brainwashing yourself to believe things are good when they're not. But to speak to your initial reaction, it would be my reaction too. And it's been my 15-year-old, it's been my reaction every time I've realized she's fallen outside of a group norm, because I know how much harder that will make all of the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And also, I recognize how much of an additional demand it puts on parents who are already incredibly stressed in many ways. And now, we have been up till now fairly lucky with our situation. We have the resources and the family to help us deal with anything that comes up. But if you're barely scraping by, and then you get this on top of it, it can be really, really hard to manage. And it's not fair. It's a real equity issue in our society, I think.
And you made the correct decision to only have one child. I failed a little bit. Michelle's completely messed up because you've got 3. You've got 3 there. So yeah, parenting's already hard enough. You get this additional. I'm going to use the word. You might use the word burden, and I'm going to speak carefully because I've got a very negative feeling about these things. So if anyone wants to correct me and tell me I'm a terrible person for relaying it in the terminology of my life experience, please do. spannersready@gmail.com. But it can certainly be seen as this additional burden gets put on you, and it's not just a diagnosis; it's a whole new world you're suddenly entering.
Yeah, I think, Spanners, me and you, we've had these conversations before, and I sensed a sort of, negativity that's come from your childhood from this. And it's things like that I've worked so hard to make sure that my other children, because isn't just about my middle son.
No.
It's about my elder child. It's about my younger child, and how this is going to affect them and their lives as well. And I'm very conscious to make sure that they're not missing out on anything, because I know that can happen, and understand that why middle son gets away in their view with certain things.
Oh my gosh, when I think of like my 2 and they're constantly going, well, he did it and he didn't get told off, and the other one who thought they'd got away with it was like, oh wow, thanks for dobbing me in. But certainly as the child of a special needs, as the sibling of a special needs child, you can feel neglected, and like all the attention is pouring to the child that needs more. But in reality, Michelle, that child does need more attention and does need more stuff and does need different things. So it's a hard balance as a parent.
Yeah, it is. And that's what I find difficult sometimes, is just, trying to make sure that the other 2 get their time out. My daughter especially is actually enrolled in a young carers sort of thing at school.
Oh, that's good.
And outside school.
That's brilliant.
And that's because she does so much. She takes on so much emotional, I don't know, kind of like, from they're very close in age. It's only 13 months. So they're very, very close, and she takes on a lot from him.
May I ask the ages of the children we're talking about?
8, 7, and 3.
So your 8-year-old is aware that there's an issue with their 7-year-old sibling, only 13 months younger, and is attending young carer courses. That is a lot to put on an 8-year-old, but I guess it's also great that that someone's addressing it to them.
Yeah, sorry, the young carer courses isn't to like train her to look after him.
No,
young carers is like a respite. So
yes. Okay,
I was conscious, especially after what me and you were talking about in the past. I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed, and I didn't want her, like, she was going to bed when he first started school and saying, I'm really worried at school today. This happened, and I don't think the teacher saw it. And she was talking about her brother, and she was just, really, just seemed overwhelmed and stressed. And I'm like, you don't need to keep worrying about him. You're 5. I didn't worry about anything. I was 5. So I spoke to the school. The school, we've got a great Senko. And, they said, like, when she's a little bit older, there's these things that we can do. And she goes and does drama, and there's a little bit of time out, and respite. That's what it's about. Something I never get, especially in lockdown. A lot of, children with additional needs in lockdown, that has been a big thing, that, there's no respite.
Oh, no. Look, I'm well aware of the stress and strain that can put you under. And just someone going, the services that get laid on, this respite care, where, they kind of just go, oh, look, let's just take everything off your hands for a minute and just sit down. Don't go on holiday, but have a cup of tea and just breathe in silence for a moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's because my son, he doesn't sleep very well either, and that's a big issue. Is that sleep deprivation is a killer. Definitely.
Yeah, I'll bet. So when it comes to podcasting, people in the live chat are talking about the sheer range. When we use very broad language such as autism, there's a huge range. And then
Yeah.
in order to combat that, we've come up with, ADHD, ADD, all these very similar things, OCD, things that are individual issues, but often combined together and often are shared. So there's like a common pattern of, if you've got one set of conditions, that often leads to others. From the outside, people who don't have to deal with any of that, it can sound so jargony, and it can just sound made up. And I think that's one of the biggest prejudices I'm sure your community of podcast listeners has to deal with, is just getting that understanding from the outside.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? The number one thing that makes my blood boil, because my son, he's a good looking lad, right? And if we're out and then someone speaks to him and he just doesn't speak back to somebody, and then I say, look, he's autistic, and they'll go, oh, he doesn't look autistic.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. But you've already told them. Yeah, well, fair enough, but I've just said it to you, so the next response doesn't need to be something that might potentially be casting doubt on it. I remember I used to take my brother out and about when I was 20, he was 16. We went to a bowling alley, and he's a good-looking lad as well. Of course he is. He's my brother. And I just remember these two girls going up to try and chat him up, and then I was just a little bit away, getting a strike or something, because I'm so good at bowling. But I could see their faces as it suddenly dawned on them that there was something wrong. And I think in those situations where the disability is revealed, or it becomes so close to normal, quote unquote normal, that it really hit home to me. And I was like, oh man, if he was not suffering with his challenges right now, he'd be scoring with some babes. Sorry, Matt, I stopped you getting in.
No, that's okay. It went a little bit. I was just thinking back to the mark about people saying, oh, they don't look autistic, or oh, they don't look this, or oh, they don't like that. What always kills me about that is if you ask the person who said that, they think they are being complimentary with that remark.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
and
it.
It's just no, you're really it's making it worse. Although, yeah, intentions, we get it.
So tell me more about the positivity side of it. That I wasn't trying to dismiss it. I was almost surprised to hear you say that there was these people describing it as the superpower. And I suppose in some circumstances there are positives out of it, and I would love to hear from you about that.
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, he's my son, and at the time people were sort of saying to me, oh, I just wouldn't change him. And at that time in my life, I think I was thinking, if I could give him a magic pill now, I would. Do you know what I mean? To me, at that point, after just having him diagnosed, just had another baby who was in intensive care with sepsis, I was not in a good place to be thinking, I don't need your positivity.
Yeah, show your positivity.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've grown, and over the years, we've really, sort of, I think this podcast especially, I'm now the kind of, not the ultra positive person, but I do think that those people at that group were a bit full on, right?
Okay,
but what people are saying in our little community that we've built on Let's Talk Autism is that, this is real parenting, and there is other autism podcasts out there and documentaries, and you've got two extremes, your extreme, basically, Spanners, or the really ultra positive. And I like to think that we're sort of like a middle ground, and people can say they do say it's really refreshing just to hear real life. So we're not saying, oh, it's great, this is such a wonderful experience. We're saying, right, okay, this happened this week. I've only had 2 hours sleep in the last 72 hours.
Yeah.
And, this has been an awful week, Christelle. How's your week gone? And just discussing that, and then having a guest on. And I think that's what people say they can relate to it more, because we're being honest about it and saying, this is what's going on.
And that's been a theme with all your stuff, with all your blogs. cockneyinthecountryside.com, with your blogs, they've always been honest. It's never Instagram perfection. And I'll apologize for being overly negative. That is just an honest account of how I felt going through those experiences myself. But obviously I was younger. You don't have the emotional tools at your chest to deal with those kind of things. Whereas you as a parent, obviously you're less selfish than a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy in the 80s. So you can draw the positives out of it. But I like not shying away from the challenges of it. I like saying it's wonderful, it's beautiful, but do you know what? It's hard, and we can sit here and talk about it, and we can try and get understanding from people. Now, Michelle, I was not expecting the AEN part of this conversation to go on so long. And I know you've got school runs and stuff to do, and it's flown by to 2:45,
Yeah.
and we said we'd get you off by 14:40. So I want to come. I want you to come back. I would love to speak about this more. There's so much more drilling down you can do, and I'm glad we addressed.
I'm good for another 5 minutes. If you want.
Well, no, I'm glad we addressed all the terminology. I'm glad we talked about how people perceive it and how people talk about it, because the language of it can so often be used to hurt and dismiss and belittle what people are going through. And I don't know, the terminology, even though ever evolving, is a vital part of how you interface the world.
Yeah, and I think just before I do go and get my 3-year-old, I was going to call him something then. But,
This is Boss Baby. This is the terror.
yeah, the boss baby. Yeah, I'm not allowed to call him the boss baby anymore though. because
Why?
He's not a baby.
Oh, he's
I'm
three.
I'm not a baby.
3-year-olds. 3-year-olds are the worst. I hate 3-year-olds. I don't think I loved either of my children when they were 3. I'm not scared to say that.
This is a psychopathic age, the 3-year-old age. Like this is bad times, but loving times, but also incredibly hard. But what I was going to say about Let's Talk Autism is that what I think is when you first get that diagnosis, or even you may be 10 years down the line, it's really lonely being at times. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm really lonely all the time, but can be really lonely being a parent of a child with additional needs, because some things come across so easy, like, oh, just come round, bring your kids, and come and have a cup of coffee. Like, no, my son will freak out about going in somebody's house he doesn't know and sitting on somebody's sofa. Your sofa might be a color that my son gets distressed about. I can't go and do that. Do you know what I mean?
Or they might not understand when you have to go. You just have to go, and you're not being rude. You just have to go.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've really liked and enjoyed. And I know when you first told me about when I was coming on with you on the radio and you're saying, oh, you should do a podcast. And I'm like, nah, don't like podcasts and all that. But I really enjoy it. I genuinely really enjoy podcasting and talking to all the parents and people that speak to us. And we've got siblings of, people with additional needs in adult life and things like that. And just having those chats, you feel less lonely.
Oh, completely. I mean, on a much more trivial note, that's how we feel with F1, isn't it, Matt? It's like, oh, yeah, I've got no F1 friends in real life, so I could start a podcast and speak to people about it. You gained at least one listener. Martin in the chat room has subscribed to Cockney in the Countryside. The podcast is called Let's Talk About Autism, and it's available on...
It's not.
What?
www.letstalkautism.co.uk.
It's
and
not...
you can find us on Instagram.
Is it not available on all the podcast platforms?
Oh, yeah, it is, but it's called Let's Talk Autism, not Let's Talk All About Autism.
Let's talk all about chatting about the autism in the space. Let's get it right then. Let's talk autism.
Yeah, and I'm at the Cockney Blog Girl on Instagram.
It's all linked, isn't it? You're linked to all of it, innit? Cockney Blog Girl. Linked to... You'll come back, won't you, Michelle? You'll come back to the shed.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I will hang up on you, encourage people to subscribe to you, and then we're going to talk about reptiles. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much, Michelle. I feel rude just hanging up on you, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. There we go. I feel rude just hanging up, just podging the button and saying goodbye, Matt. I found that interesting. Obviously, I've got a personal, link into that topic, but I hope it wasn't too boring for everyone else.
No, I think there are a large number of people probably in our community and certainly in the chat room today who are directly or indirectly affected by all of these issues. And as medical science improves and as diagnoses improve, more and more people are finding themselves with kids who fall into various forms of these categories. And it's good that they have a place where they can go and talk to people with similar issues and challenges. And just unburden themselves a little bit because, as Michelle said, it can be really
lonely.
You can have all the mental positivity you want, but man, it can be really hard. I mean, this is where Dad Hub came from.
Yeah, the loneliness in any kind of area of life when it feels like it's just you. And just from a selfish, self-indulgent point of view, when I was a kid, it did feel like I was the only kid in the world that was dealing with that. And also, you're not allowed to feel sorry for yourself because you're not the one that there's a problem with. You know, you're lucky. Well, at least it wasn't your brother, you know. You'll always be the favorite and more successful child. Positive, you know. That's a terrible thing to say. But I'm glad to hear that the siblings of Michelle's child have that support at school, which is lovely. And it all removes the loneliness. And that's the big positive of social media and podcasts in this space. It doesn't just lead you to ever more horrendous and selfish political views. You can also find your kin and your brethren around the internet.
Yeah, well, I actually follow and have followed both ADHD. There's a community of ADHD people on Twitter, but there's also an autistic community on Twitter. The person I'm thinking of calls themselves, Neurodivergent Rebel. And I have
Okay.
learned a lot just by listening to them talk to each other about how they experience the world and how they see themselves and what frustrates them about the way non-autistic people talk about them and interact with them. So it's truly revelatory, and you should go look for people that you can learn from on social media, because that's one of its biggest positives.
I do that. And so her podcast is called Let's Talk Autism, a very
Right.
niche podcast, but that will build an audience, and it has built an audience if you're good in that niche. Remain Indoors is not going to grow. It's not going to grow. It's not going to be a huge podcast unless I star in a movie or you become the world's greatest and most well-known trumpet player, because it's too general. I'm really happy with the audience we've got and what we're doing, and long may it continue. But we're so not in a niche, Matt, that we're going from autism to reptiles. That's what we're doing now. Like all good podcasts do.
I beg to differ. Our niche is non-niche, and that's a niche.
Our niche is complete. What did you say? Did you say Seinfeld was like this?
Yeah, it was a show about nothing. That was
Okay.
the whole pitch. The whole pitch was about them pitching the show to a TV network, and when they asked them what it's about, and they told them, they said like, oh, so the show is about nothing then, and they
Yeah.
were like, well, yeah, basically.
Yeah, and whilst I'm not claiming we're as good as Seinfeld, we are proudly about nothing as well. And so for now, for this space and this listenership, that's fine. We just got to accept that it's probably never going to grow. But we're going to go on to Turtles, Matt. Now, before the show, I asked you what we should do, whether we should hang around or play out with this interview. I'm going to vote we play out with this interview because we've already gone 48 minutes, and then we will reconvene and do a patron live stream for our F1 patrons on Friday after free practice, and then we've got our race review for the something Grand Prix, the Eiffel Grand Prix, the Eiffel. That's confusing. That makes
EI is always I in German.
that makes it
I.
sound French. It's EI.
No,
Yeah.
actually, it's not, because Spiel is, well. Anyway, it's a long story,
Okay,
but it's
okay.
Eiffel. Everyone's pronounced it Eiffel.
The point is, you and I have got lots of talking to do together, and then we'll get back to Remain Indoors on Thursday, and we'll try and see if we can get Lauren back on, who missed out last week because her internet was dead in her whole area.
Yes.
Cool. All right, then. Well, I think that we'll leave it at that. Matt, you are at MattPT55 on Twitter. You're on Facebook and Instagram, where you post pictures of you with trumpets.
Yeah, and the food that my daughter bakes. There's that too.
There's that too. Yeah. Okay, good. Go and follow Matt Trumpets. I'm at Spanners Ready, and the show is at Indoors Remain. And go and follow us at Formula One if you're not already one of our Formula One podcast listeners by searching for at Missed Apex. And it's a really clumsy segue into this video, but this is me talking to Roger from Roger's Reptiles. And I'm very to end the show this week by being joined by the curator of Roger's Reptiles on YouTube. Hello there, Roger.
Hi.
Roger, tell me, what is it about reptiles that makes you so passionate about them? Why not like a fluffy kitten or a puppy or something, or like a koala bear? Why reptiles? They're scary and mean looking.
Well, they're not actually mean looking in person. I mean, reptiles, I think they're amazingly cool. There's a lot of different types, a lot of variation, and they're really fun to look after.
And you say that they're cool. They are literally cool. Like you've got hot lamps in your little aquarium behind you. So they're cold-blooded. What
Yeah.
does that mean for them?
So mammals, we're mammals, so we have warm blood, where
Right.
reptiles and amphibians, they all have cold blood, so they need to use the sunlight, heat radiation, and they need to go into the shade and move around to regulate their body temperature.
Oh, right. So if we're a bit hot, we'll sweat and that will
Yeah.
regulate our body temperature and make us cooler. But if you're a lizard, you have to either go and find sun or go and hide from the sun. What do your parents think about all the hot lamps? You must be costing them a fortune in electricity.
Well, I try to keep it low. We do have them on thermostat, so when it gets too hot, they'll turn off to save electricity. I have a certain time where I turn them off every day.
Ah.
If I take them out to put them in the conservatory for the natural heat, I'll turn the lamps off.
Ah, so you're being very ecological there. Now, in our family, my wife wanted to have 2 cats, and I didn't want to have any pets at all. But she wanted 2 cats. So we compromised, and we got 2 cats, just like she wanted, right? But I haven't got them any other pets. I haven't got them any other hamsters or lizards or anything like that. But if we were considering it, what's your absolute favorite reptile that you've got at home?
Well, my favorite reptile has to be my giant tortoise Bruno and my chameleon, which is over there.
Ah, okay. And how many total reptiles do you have?
Ooh, I should have
Uh-oh.
counted it before.
It's going to be a big number, isn't it? Would you
Well-
have to take your socks off to count them?
Probably. So, yeah, I've got at least nearly in the 20s range.
What? And okay, be completely honest with me now. No one else is listening. Do your parents actually know all the reptiles you've got, or do you like go and find a lizard and sneak one from the pet shop and add to the count?
Nope, they all know. They're the ones that have to take me to the pet shop. So,
That's true. That's a good point. You're a kid. Forgotten about that. So, if you were to get a pet reptile that you don't already have, what would you want to add to your collection?
well, I have about 2 or 3. So, I'd like to get a fat-tailed gecko to breed with
Mhm.
leopard geckos and make hybrids, all
Okay.
different colours.
And am I right in thinking that hybrids can't then go on and breed further?
It depends if they're 2 different genetic species. If they are the same genetic species, like a leopard gecko and a fat-tailed, a gargoyle gecko and a crested gecko, I'll get onto that in a bit.
Yeah.
You can crossbreed them and they can still have babies.
Oh, right.
So,
That's really interesting. You're amazing me with your depth of knowledge. It's making me want to check out your YouTube channel. Remind me what it's called, your YouTube channel.
Rogers Reptiles.
Rogers Reptiles. Now, being a YouTuber, I mean, there's a range of YouTubers, isn't there? There's some real terrible YouTubers like me and Matt, and there's some brilliant ones. What have you found hardest about making your videos? Because there's quite a lot of them now.
Well, the hardest thing has got to be, setting it up, getting ready, because I am filming animals, keeping the animals,
Yes.
ready to show off. More fun
And
than
they
hard
can't
work.
run away that quickly, can they, Rog? Because
No.
like there's a tortoise, they go, oh no, he's slowly getting away, and you can just pick him up and put him back.
Yeah.
He's
I mean-
gradually moving out of shot. Sorry.
Yeah, so some reptiles are really fast. I'll get my plated lizard out. I once had him on my garden. I thought, I'll take him out of his tank because he seems pretty chill. Next thing I know, he's about to run off, jump off the cliff into the woodlands and run into the woodlands. So I just managed when he tripped over or
Mhm.
slid because the grass is wet. I quickly grabbed him and he has got super sharp claws. So I got a lot of scratches from that. And I had to wrestle him into his cage. So they can be quite fast.
Wow, what kind
So-
of creature was that again?
Plated lizard.
A plated lizard. So you're going into school with scars and wounds from your plated lizard. That must be
Yeah.
very cool. I bet your friends love coming around and seeing all the reptiles.
Yeah. My friend Alfie, he also has a YouTube channel. That's in my channels.
Well, let's not
in the
advertise.
subscriptions,
Let's not
but
advertise his. Let's focus. Let's focus on
Look,
yours. I've got one final question for you, Rog. If anybody listening is inspired by you talking about your reptiles or is inspired by your YouTube channel, if we want to get started, what's a good starter reptile for us to get? Because I'm going to be honest with you. If I go into this, I don't mess around. Okay, I'm thinking kimono dragon as my first reptile. What do you think?
no, definitely not. They are venomous. They would eat you.
They would eat you.
And yeah, they'd eat you. Trust
Mhm.
me. They'd eat a lion and not even care because they've got that much tough skin. They've got venom. They've got venom, and they'd just kill you within 5 seconds.
Okay, so not a kimono dragon. Give us a recommendation then. A stick insect.
Well, they aren't reptiles.
Oh.
So
Oh, come on, Uncle Spanners.
they are invertebrates. But if I were to say any reptiles, it would
Mhm.
be, bearded dragons, tortoises, and leopard geckos. And I mean, it really depends on what suits you. A ball python or a corn snake would be an amazing pet for you if you wouldn't mind feeding them rats and mice.
Ooh,
So
yeah, you'd have to. Could you stomach being able to do that? I would feel like it would be a betrayal to my team, the mammals, to feed one of ourselves to the snake. Now, you mentioned before you go that you might have a couple of reptiles on the floor there that you could possibly
yeah, I've
flash
got
to
one
camera.
that's just knocked over the barricade and is now
Brilliant.
over at my door.
Okay, go on then.
So yeah, I do have a few reptiles. If you want me to grab one that's supposed to be on the floor somewhere. This.
Oh, that is a beast! And what's his name or her name?
Well, this is Sally. She's a female leopard tortoise.
Hello, Sally.
And she is ginormous. She weighs a ton, and she's the second biggest.
In your house.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, put them down for the second. Sit yourself down. I just want to ask you to describe for us, Rog, what is the latest video on your channel?
My latest video, when this is on, would be the new leopard gecko video where I'm talking about all the new leopard geckos setting up their enclosures and doing videos on them.
Go and check out Roger's Reptiles on YouTube. The link in the show notes. Roger, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
How long have I been whittering on for? So I understand that is terribly self-indulgent of me to have my nephew on. He wanted to come on. He's been asking, and he's been watching all the shows and learning from Uncle Spanners. But had he not got the body of work of his YouTube channels, I wouldn't have had him on. So I've already seen him doing all the stuff, and I can see, oh, look at you. You are a communicator. You're already a communicator in your field. And you've picked up a lot of expert knowledge, or at least a lot of general knowledge that he can then dictate to us quite well. So my job at the moment, is interviewing people, essentially is having conversations and interviewing. So I didn't want him to be live in case he was nervous or he messed up. But really, I went away from that thinking, well, actually, that was as good as an interview as the people that just get thrown at me in broadcast land, or the people that we invite on. So I'm really, really pleased with how that went. So please forgive some indulgence. The favourite fact I have about reptiles that I didn't bring on when I spoke to Roger was, here's a good trick to do to people. When they have a tortoise, say, oh, look, nice turtle. Or in the zoo, go, oh, look at those land turtles walking around. And people think you're joking or stupid. And they go, oh, no, it's a tortoise. And you go, but all tortoises are turtles. And they get really upset at that thing. That is true, but that is true. Yeah, tortoises are turtles. They're land turtles, if anything. It would be better if turtles were called sea tortoises, but that's not the way things work. I will put the link to Roger's channel in the show notes. I'm getting better at doing that kind of thing. Thank you for indulging me. in that interview, and maybe we learned a thing or two as well. That's the music. Oh man, I was talking for like 5 minutes with myself on mute like an idiot. I always tell people off for doing that kind of thing, but the final edit, it won't be there, so you won't see how embarrassed I am. Remain indoors, guys. Stay safe. We'll see you F1 patronage people tomorrow on Friday, and we'll see the rest of you F1 Missed Apex type listeners on Sunday. See ya.